Welcome to The Haunted Beard. My name is Jake. Thank you for joining me. So, if you've been following along, I've been reviewing the Alien franchise, and today I'm here to talk about Prometheus. And of course, this is the prequel, maybe reboot, I guess you could call it, either one of those, that came out in 2012. And this one takes place roughly 30 years prior to the events of Alien, and it sees a crew aboard the Prometheus as they are searching for the origins of humanity and our creators. I actually remember seeing Prometheus in theaters when it originally came out and remember being a big fan of it, and I've revisited it a few times since then, but it had been a while since my previous watch, so I was very curious to see how well it held up. So I've got some thoughts here for you. Let's get into this thing. One of my favorite aspects of Prometheus is just how different it feels compared to the other films in this franchise. And that's something I will typically bring up when doing these franchise reviews, that, you know, when you're reviewing 6, 8, 10 movies in a franchise, eventually it kind of starts feeling repetitive, right? But then sometimes you get lucky and one comes along that really kind of does something different and changes things up. And Prometheus is the example here in the Alien franchise. And so I really appreciate kind of the different approach, different direction that Ridley Scott took with this movie. And in doing this kind of prequel, it just feels so different in that he's really exploring different themes, a totally different story, but it's still set within the Alien universe and still has a connection to it. And so it just kind of gives him the opportunity to do something new, do something, I think, very creative and fresh. And so I just really like this approach. I wish more franchises would kind of take this approach when doing a prequel or reboot type film within the series, that it just is nice to get something different. And I like how much it expands the world and it opens up the Alien universe quite a bit to where, you know, there's so many more different possibilities and ideas that are worth exploring. And so I really like what he did here. And in a lot of ways, I think this is Ridley Scott doing his own version of Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Some similarities, specifically in the themes, you know, kind of a little bit more of a high concept sci-fi, kind of bringing up ideas and themes and questions and stuff like that, and similar themes with, you know, the evolution and creation and the origins of humanity and what is our place in the universe and stuff like that. And 2001: A Space Odyssey is one of my all-time favorite movies, and so it's just kind of cool to see Ridley Scott clearly draw and take some inspiration from that film and then, you know, put his own little twist on it and then set it within the Alien universe. So I just really like the whole kind of presentation and approach to Prometheus overall. One of my other favorite aspects of Prometheus is Michael Fassbender and the character of David. Man, I think he is absolutely fantastic in this film. And I love his character. I love that you learn right from the get-go that he is a robot, he is the android. But man, the way that Fassbender portrays this character, I find fascinating. And one of the most interesting aspects to him that I always find so engaging, no matter how many times I watch this movie, is kind of questioning his motivation. Where do David's true loyalties lie? What is his angle? Where is he coming from? Why does he do the things that he does? Now, the simplified answer would be, well, he's just simply taking orders from Wayland. And I think that is true to a degree, but I feel like there's something extra going on, that almost David acts in a way as if he is this kind of independent, autonomous, you know, creation in a way. And especially too with Alien Covenant, the follow-up, I think it kind of gives way to that possibility a little bit more based on what he does in that film. But man, I just love Fassbender in this role. He's so intriguing, so mysterious that I just can't help but just kind of be taken by him and captivated by his performance every time he's on screen. I'm just closely watching him. I think he's great. And I'll just say this, he is my second favorite character in this entire franchise behind Ripley. So yeah, I think Fassbender in this is fantastic and I love his character. Obviously, a lot can be said about the visuals and the cinematography in this. It's just a really beautiful looking film. And, you know, just has this this epic grand scope to it, these, vast landscapes, wide shots of just beautiful scenery and stuff like that. And so the visuals here are all really on point, and Prometheus does a really good job creating a very immersive, otherworldly type experience just through the visuals. And so I think they're fantastic. And if you've watched my channel at all, you probably know I am a sucker for mysteries, really within any sort of genre. There's just something about mysteries that immediately pulls me right in and captures my attention. And so when you've got a sci-fi movie within the Alien universe dealing with some kind of interesting themes of human origins and creation and all that stuff built within this mystery, I just can't help but kind of be sucked right in. And so I really like the overall mystery here. And I think it's a movie that rewards multiple viewings. I think it leaves some stuff up to interpretation. And it just kind of forces you to pay attention and really kind of think about things. And so I just appreciate that about it. Also, I have to mention the horror in Prometheus. And while it is, yes, more heavily a sci-fi mystery, there are some horror elements. And one of the best horror scenes, I'll say, in the entire franchise is the scene where Shaw is in the little operation table and they have to surgically remove the face hugger out of her womb. What a fantastic scene. A little bit of a kind of a body horror, but just so intense. And man, Noomi Rapace's performance in that scene, man, it really feels like she actually went through this operation. She's fantastic in it, and it's such an insane, crazy scene, and it's very memorable, one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. Now, as much as I like Prometheus, it is not without its issues, and watching it just recently again, I did pick up on some issues that I didn't really remember having with it on previous viewings, and so I'll get into them a little bit. Some of these are a little nitpicky. Most of them have to do with dumb characters making dumb decisions. That's kind of really the only main complaint I can have with this. But the first little thing is that Guy Pearce, he's great. Like, he gives a good performance, but to me, the makeup, I don't know, it hasn't aged well, or it doesn't really look that good. Why not just cast a very old actor? And so, I don't know, that's a little thing that it's kind of like, well, that doesn't really look very good. And so it kind of takes me out of the movie a little bit when he's on screen. Now, regarding dumb characters, the two main offenders are probably pretty obvious if you've seen this, and that's Fifield and Milburn. And these are the two knuckleheads that get lost in the, I guess, underground tunnels. And I don't know how they got lost, because they literally send out these, flying beacons that are scanning the whole place. So it's like they have a hologram map, but somehow they get lost. And I don't understand, why they keep moving around. Idris Elba's like, listen, just hang tight. We'll pick you up in the morning. But they keep, traveling around this place. And it's like, why? And these two make some of the most idiotic decisions. First of all, why not just stay put in one place where it's safe, but they have to continue to explore this place, and obviously they find nothing good. And then the whole scene, you got an alien space viper, right, that comes up out of the black goo. And, the one dude is looking at it like it's this cute little puppy dog. And it's like, dude, come on. It's just stupid. They just make a bunch of dumb, irritating decisions. And the sooner they get killed off, the better. Needless to say, I'm not a fan of their characters and how they are written. Another couple things that I have is towards the end of the film, Idris Elba decides that he is going to, kamikaze the Prometheus into the engineer spaceship. That's one that I feel like it's a bit of a stretch in terms of believability, that all of a sudden he's just kind of on board, gung-ho, like, we're going to do this. And throughout most of the film, he kind of comes across as a guy who, wouldn't be that heroic, I guess. And so that's a bit of a stretch. Really, the only other kind of, major complaint that I have, again, kind of has to do with just some stupidity regarding Charlize Theron's character towards the end, when the whole spaceship is crashing to Earth and her and Shaw are trying to run away from it. And it's like, instead of just running in a straight line, all you have to do is run about 20 feet to the side and you wouldn't have gotten crushed. And so I don't know. I understand it's like, you're in panic mode and you're not thinking clearly, but it's like, hey, just turn to the side for a second and you'll be okay. But yeah, so there's a few things in this movie that kind of bother me, but overall, I'm still very much on the positive and really enjoy Prometheus quite a bit. Now, given the fact that this is a mystery movie, I figured I'd at least spend a little bit of time here in my review kind of unlocking the mystery and going through some of the major questions and stuff like that, and I guess kind of just talk about my interpretation of it all. So let's get into that. So the film opens up very mysteriously as we are first introduced to an engineer. We don't know what it is. It's just this, hulked out, pale white looking dude. He drinks this black goo and it completely destroys and disintegrates his body. Then he falls off the cliff into the waterfall, and we see his DNA literally being ripped apart and then fusing back together again and giving way to new life. And I really like the mysteriousness of this opening and how intriguing it is. And it really kind of grabs my attention right from the get-go because it's just so mysterious and captivating. You're like, okay, what is this thing? You have so many questions, which to me is such a great way to open a film, by introducing mystery and questions, and that just grabs me. So I really like this intro. I like that it doesn't clearly spell out the answer for you, and it really doesn't even give you an explicit answer throughout the film until you kind of think and ponder on it a little bit. But to me, this is the engineer creating humanity. I think this is planet Earth. He drinks this goo, which we find out is this basically pathogen, biological type weapon. And ultimately, through death and destruction, it gives birth to new life. And so I think the destruction of the DNA and then the reparation of it and then the birth of those cells, I think, is the engineers creating humanity. And that idea speaks directly to the title of the film. And Prometheus is a character in Greek mythology who tricked the gods and brought, I believe it was fire and kind of wisdom and knowledge and information to humanity to help them evolve and progress. Only Prometheus was punished by the gods for all eternity. And so that speaks to that idea that efforts to improve life and make life better and, gain knowledge and enlightenment and wisdom and stuff like that ultimately lead to death and destruction in the case of Prometheus. And here we kind of see that death ultimately gives way to life, which again, it's just the cycle of life and death over and over again kind of thing. And then we see the crew of the Prometheus, they're seeking answers, but obviously it ends horribly. And so that's kind of the vicious cycle of it all, I guess. Now, in terms of why they created us, that's one of the big questions that the film brings up, and one of the main reasons why Shaw and the crew of the Prometheus go to where they go and do what they do. And we never really get a clear answer on that, and it's kind of left a little ambiguous and up in the air. But it could be just as simple as the conversation between Holloway and David, where Holloway tells him, we created you, and maybe we just did it because we could. And then David responds, well, maybe that's essentially why the engineers created you. Did you ever think of that sort of thing? And so it could just be that, which is a very sort of dark and unsatisfying answer, but it could just be the reality of it. They just simply created us because they could. That's really the only kind of answer that is alluded to at all, but it could be other reasons, but we don't really know. Now, what we end up learning is that the planet that the Prometheus lands on, LV-223, they think it is the home planet of the engineers, but it turns out to be a military base because they figure out that this black goo is some sort of biological weapon, and they weren't dumb enough to create it on their home doorstep, as Idris Elba says. And something obviously happened that led to the death of a bunch of these engineers, as we see a bunch of their dead bodies piled up. And we learned that they were getting ready to take their spaceship, which had a huge cargo load of this black goo, back to Earth to destroy humanity. Now, we don't exactly know what happened to the engineers. It's possible that maybe there was some sort of coup and they were divided. Maybe some of them wanted to take the black stuff back to Earth and some of them didn't, and there was this big fight that broke out and they killed one another. Or perhaps the black goo got out and destroyed all of them. And so that's another one of those things that's a little bit up in the air. Now, regarding why they wanted to bring that stuff back to Earth to destroy humanity, that's another question that we don't really get a clear answer on, and so we're kind of just left to speculate. Perhaps they were not happy with the way humanity had been evolving as a species, and they decided to just, to hell with it and destroy us all and start all over again. We don't really know. All we can do is just kind of guess. And finally, one of the coolest things about Prometheus is when we start to see some of the clear connections to the alien universe towards the end of the film. Now, we see earlier in the film that David spikes Holloway's drink with some of the black goo. Holloway drinks it, becomes horribly infected, but before so, he has sex with Shaw and she gets impregnated. And then we find out that even though it only happened mere hours prior, she is now 3 months pregnant. And when she goes into that surgery scene, it pulls out a creature that, to me, how I understand it, it is the very first facehugger. So we really learn the origin of the facehugger creature. When a human being is injected or ingests the black goo and then impregnates somebody else, it gives way to a facehugger. And then we see the birth of what to me seems like the very first xenomorph alien creature, when the now gigantic facehugger basically impregnates one of the engineers and out pops through the chest the very first xenomorph. And so I really like kind of how all that stuff comes together and really seeing the origin and the creation of these species and kind of how that all plays out and unfolds is pretty cool stuff. And I remember being in the theater when this came out and seeing that little epilogue scene where you get the chest buster out of the engineer and seeing the xenomorph with the, the second teeth busting out of its jaw and just being like, okay, this is cool. So yeah, just good memories at the theater. And yeah, look, this is a lot of fun. I really enjoy Prometheus. It's a borderline great sci-fi mystery to me. There are some issues that I have with it, and obviously I discussed those, but I still really like this film. I'm a borderline 8 out of 10 for Prometheus, and so I'll just give it an 8 out of 10. It's right around there. Still have a lot of fun with this one. Think it holds up quite well. And yeah, those are my thoughts. So hit me up down below. I know I feel like people are fairly divisive on this one, but yeah, let me know down below. Would love to hear your thoughts on Prometheus. So that's all I got for you. Up next is the final film, at least until the release of Romulus in a week or so. But up next is Alien Covenant, and that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything out of this video, you know what to do. Do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.